Isaiah 46. Baal bows down, Nebo stoops low. Their idols are borne by beasts of burden. The images that are carried about are burdensome, a burden for the weary. They stoop and bow down together, unable to rescue the burden. They themselves go off into captivity. Listen to me, you descendants of Jacob, all the remnant of the people of Israel, you whom I have upheld since your birth and have carried since you were born. Even to your old age and grey hairs, I am he who will sustain you. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you. With whom will you compare me or count me equal? To whom will you liken me that we may be compared? Some pour out gold from their bags and weigh out silver on the scales. They hire a goldsmith to make it into a god, and they bow down and worship it. They lift it to their shoulders and carry it. They set it in its place, and there it stands. From that spot it cannot move. Even though someone cries out to it, it cannot answer. It cannot save them from their troubles. Remember this. Keep it in mind. Take it to heart, you rebels. Remember the former things, those of long ago. I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me. I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times, what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please. From the east I summon a bird of prey, from a far-off land a man to fulfill my purpose. What I have said, that I will bring about. What I have planned, that I will do. Listen to me, you stubborn-hearted, you who are now far from my righteousness. I am bringing my righteousness near. It is not far away, and my salvation will not be delayed. I will grant salvation to Zion, my splendor to Israel.
Okay, well, good evening from me. My name is Ben, one of the pastors here at the church. Good to have you if you're new or visiting, or if you're joining online, it's good to have you tuning in. There is an official line on why we're in Isaiah tonight, taking a break from the Songs of Ascent, and that official line is this. I'll give you the candid line later if you come up and ask me. But the official line is, we've been celebrating our 20th anniversary as a church. We had a special day yesterday. We had a great time together. This morning we had a fantastic guest preacher. And in the theme of taking sort of a pause from our normal program, we are taking a week out in Isaiah. That's the official line. If you want the candid line, you can ask me later. But it's great. It's fantastic. What an amazing passage, actually. So many incredible things God says to us here in this chapter. So let's pray. Let's ask for the Lord's help, that he blesses us with his word, that he feeds us, that he exposes sin in us, and that he shows us Christ and heals our wounds by looking at him and knowing him. So let's pray that. Father, we thank you so much for your word, that you are a God who speaks, and as you speak, you breathe life. I pray, please, that your Holy Spirit would help us now to have eyes to see the truth of this chapter, the things that you want to deal in our hearts with, the things you want to show us about Christ, and give us hearts that long for Jesus and love him as the kind King that we heard about this morning. So please help us now, in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Okay, I think a couple of weeks ago, I'm not sure if it was mentioned last week, but a few weeks ago, Rory mentioned Race Across the World, this TV show. I don't know if anyone's been watching it. Yeah, Kerry has been having it on repeat. She's doing this thing where I think season 3 is coming out, and it's like every week there's a new episode. So she's doing this thing where she's watching season 2, sort of back to back, and then waiting for the season 3. She's in season 3, and then she's back to season 2, carrying on, waiting for the next episode. So sometimes I'm like, who am I watching here? You know, are they going to cross Canada or somewhere else? And anyway, Race Across the World. The premise is these people are sort of teamed up in couples, and they're trying to get, other side of the world as quickly as possible on a limited budget. And it's very fractious because people are in these tense, tough situations. They have to make split-second decisions. They're under a lot of pressure. And what you see is cracks start emerging in the character of these people. We know that, don't we? When we're in positions of stress and difficulty, we crack. And cracks that were always there, but kind of hidden politely behind our nice social exterior, suddenly get blast open. I don't know if you've ever seen those amazing ball structure things that you see in toy shops that are like cages, and you throw them up in the air and they expand like that. Don't know if you've ever seen that. And then you catch them and they sort of crumple down again. Well, that's what happens to us when we come under pressure. We're like that ball, and all of our little sort of gaps and cracks explode open. And you can see what you're like sort of on the inside. And having a baby is an amazing moment where you see, oh my goodness, I thought I had dealt with that, but it's huge. It's absolutely massive. So I don't know what you think about me. I don't know whether you think I'm a nice person. I know I've only met some of you a couple of times. I know some of you know me a bit better. I can tell you there is a limit to my niceness. Yeah? I'm very good at being very sort of polite and nice and smiley, but I have learned that there is actually a limit to my niceness. I'm sort of sad to say, because, the first time that Kerry is sitting down feeding Elodie and asked me to, Ben, can you just get me that? And I'm like, yes, darling, I will lay my life down for you. I will go and get that thing. And I go and get the thing and I bring it back. And then she's like, can you also get this? And I'm like, yes, darling, I will lay my life down for you. And I get up and get that thing. And then the third time, I'm like, yes, darling, I will lay my life down for you. And then the fourth time, my heart starts thinking, surely I've laid my life down enough. Isn't my life just on the floor? And so what I've learned, actually, is my heart doesn't actually really believe what God says. It's quite shocking. I thought I did in my head. I know in my head. I hear God's word. I hear what he says to me, and I go, I agree with that, Lord. I believe it. When Jesus says it is more blessed to give than to receive, I hear that and I agree with it. But actually, what my heart says is no. That's the wrong way around. Jesus got that wrong. It's way better to receive than to give, surely. So I have realized I have the idol of self. And that's been very clear to me as I've been under this new pressure of having a newborn. I've seen that really the God that will rescue me and satisfy my heart, what my sinful heart says, is myself. That's what my heart has shown me. So, when I'm gladly serving in the temple of self, and I'm a priest in my own temple of self, and I'm trying to get my football team ready for my fantasy team, and Kerry asked me to do something again, I think, surely I've done enough here. Surely I've laid my life down enough. So that's what it's been for me. It's been very interesting. As a Christian, when these moments happen in your life, you get to look at yourself and you say, whoa, hey, I thought I dealt with that. That's much bigger in my heart than I thought it was. So that's what it's been for me recently. But I wonder, what is it for you? What pressure in your life is exposing those cracks in your heart? Is it maybe a stable future? I just want control over my future, and pressure has come in my life. My future's now uncertain, and whoa, suddenly I see this massive crack in my heart. Or worldly success. Maybe you've got a friend or someone you know who's just absolutely boss in life at the moment. I've got a friend who at uni was like, this guy, what is he going to do in his life? He's going to sort of trundle along. And now he's literally playing gigs in front of thousands of people. And you look at him online and you go, wow, mate, you've made it. I could count the heads in here. Compared to 7,000 people that he's got. Wow, success. Oh my goodness. Maybe a happy marriage. Maybe is your marriage not as happy as you thought it was? That's the pressure. Maybe your children, you hoped so many things for them, I'm right at the beginning of my journey, so I'm not disappointed yet. He hasn't let me down once yet, except for pooing all over my lap at a wedding a couple of weeks ago. But an idol is anything that we look to aside from God as our foundation of joy, happiness, security, hope, or even justice. And if you want to know what temple you serve in, what idol do you have? What cracks have you got in your life? I think there's quite a simple test, and the simple test is this. When was the last time you felt a sense of injustice against yourself? And I don't mean, genuine sort of abuse or neglect. Put those things to a side where someone's genuinely hurt you. But when was the last time in the normal course of life, you're just getting on, something happens which shouldn't, but enrages you because you feel like you're in the temple of yourself. You're trying to do something, and someone's come and demanded something of you where you have to put it down. When was the last time you felt, hang on a minute, wait. Finish this sentence for me. I deserve. What do you deserve? Or I have a right to. Wait, no, 5 more minutes. I have a right to. That's the temple that you worship in. And there's a major problem with idols. There's a major problem with these idols and these cracks that appear in our heart, because what we see is that these idols that we look to for a sense of fulfillment, satisfaction, joy, they don't deliver. So me sitting down thinking, I wish Kerry wouldn't ask me to get up one more time because then I would be happy, is wrong. That idol doesn't deliver. And God, in his great love for us, shows us that in this passage. That's what he shows us really clearly. That's what this chapter of Isaiah is all about. It's about the foolishness of idolatry, and it's about what God says to us through it. So look at verse 5. He says, with whom will you compare me? Where else are you going to look for fulfillment, satisfaction, and peace? Ben, do you honestly think that getting your fantasy football team is perfect and getting the highest score in the Cornerstone Football League, which I think, by the way, Chris Bradshaw is leading at the moment, do you honestly think beating Chris Bradshaw at Fantasy Football League is going to make you happy, is going to satisfy you, is going to give you meaning and contentment and peace? Well, maybe a little bit. But it won't. Fantasy football is a false idol. No. Okay, so bit of context for this passage here in chapter 46. Bel and Nebu, great names, aren't they? They were the premier gods of the premier nation on earth at the time. So Babylon was this amazing nation, nothing else in the whole world like it. And their premier gods were Bel and Nebo. So Bel it means Lord. It's where Baal comes from. And Nebo was interesting. He was like a word, interestingly enough. He was like the god scribe. He was the god who created writing, and he acted as like a prophet, an interpreter for Bel to the nations. So you've got this kind of pseudo-lord and word in Babylon, which is interesting. These are the premier gods of the day, and together, as they operated together, they were like the gods of order and destiny. So if you wanted good crops, you would pray to Bel and to Nebo. If you wanted a happy marriage and lots of children, you would pray to Bel and to Nebo. If you wanted to control your life, whatever idol you had in your heart wanted to achieve, whatever you thought would satisfy you, you would pray to them, and they would give it to you. That's the idea. So what God does here in this chapter is he takes the two greatest idols on earth as an example for all other idols, whatever they may be, and he's going to preach to us, show us how pathetic they are, how they don't fulfill our desires, and then really what does fulfill our desires. And I've got 3 points tonight. The first one is listen. You see that in verse 3. Listen. The second one is remember in verse 8. And the third one is listen in verse 12. Listen, remember, listen. And the first point is listen. God carries you. God carries you. There's a really stark contrast here in this chapter between what God does and what idols do. I wonder if you noticed it as we were reading. Because in verse 1, we see Bel bows down, Nebo stoops low. Their idols are borne by beasts of burden. So this is kind of foretelling what's going to happen to these idols. God is saying even, as grand as they are, as high as they're raised up, they're going to bow down low. And he's actually foretelling what's going to happen in the future. They're going to be brought down, these idols, and they're going to be carried off by beasts of burden. So they're going to be physically carried away, these idols. And they're heavy loads. They're borne by beasts of burden. You can't carry these statues and these idols away yourself. You can't just have a couple of blokes say, yeah, come on, give me a hand with Bell. Let's take him away. They have to be dragged away and pulled away by beasts of burden. So they're heavy, these idols. They're heavy. Physically, but also spiritually. If you look at the second half of verse 1, the images that are carried about are burdensome. They're a burden for the weary. That's ultimately what idols do. They stand up and look pretty. They promise you freedom. They promise you liberation. They promise you joy and contentment. But in the end, they don't fulfill, and they're actually a burden for the weary. They crush you. They pin you down. So when money is our idol, you just are enslaved to work, aren't you? I just want a bit more money. Okay, I'm going to get a second job. I just want a bit more money. Okay, I'm going to kick that person out of the way so I can get a promotion. I want a bit more money, so I'm going to go gambling. That idol crushes and weighs upon you. When popularity or self-image is your idol, that's crushing, isn't it? It's exhausting keeping up an appearance, trying to look the best on social media, trying to present yourself perfectly all the time. I don't know if you've seen, I think it's on ITV, there's this I Am TV series. There's one called I Am Victoria. It's just exhausting to watch. There's a woman who's just obsessed with her image and how her kids dress and how her house is and how people outside see her and her makeup and her hair and what food she cooks for guests who come to. It's exhausting to watch. That idol in her life is just crushing. It doesn't bring her freedom. It's crushing. What about success? I've already told you about my friend. He's got 7,000 people watching him. Amazing. If that's an idol, it crushes you because 7,000 is not enough. I want 70,000. The things that we thought would satisfy us and bring us rest are actually, they're a burden and they make us weary. Now here's the difference with God. Here's the really amazing stark contrast that this chapter is just beautiful at painting. Notice the difference with God. Look at verse 3. Listen to me, you descendants of Jacob. Remember, these idols are carried and they're burdensome. This is what God says. Listen to me, you descendants of Jacob, all the remnant of the people Israel. You whom I have upheld since your birth and have carried since you were born, even to your old age and grey hairs. I am he who will sustain you. I have made you and I will carry you. I will sustain you and I will rescue you. Yeah, do you see? An idol is a lifelong burden that has to be carried. God is the lifelong burden bearer who carries you. Amazing difference. Maybe you come across the poem Footprints in the Sand. Have you come across that one? Quite a famous Christian poem. If you don't know it, the premise is that a man or someone walks along a beach, and as they're walking along a beach in the sand, they're seeing various scenes of their life play by. And when they get to the end of their life, they say to God, and they look back over their life, and they see two pairs of footprints in the sand where they've walked with God their whole life. But they notice that in the difficult and dark times of their life, there's only one pair of footprints. And they say, God, in the darkest moments of my life, why did you abandon me? Why did you let me walk those moments by myself? And God says to the person, no. In those moments, that's when I carried you. That's when there's only one footprints in the sand, because I was carrying you. That's a nice poem, isn't it? But I actually want to say it's wrong. When you look back over the course of your life, you will only see one pair of footprints in your life. There is only one pair of footprints in the sand. And that's what God is saying to you here, because from the moment you were conceived, God was carrying you. The word born here is actually the word womb. So it's like it's saying from From the moment that you were in the womb, I have carried you. You haven't walked by yourself without me. I have carried you. The ESV puts it really beautifully. It says, you who have been born by me from before your birth, carried from the womb. Before you belonged to your parents, you belonged to God, and he carried you. I mean, something Kerry says often about Elodie, our new baby girl, is, I didn't make that. I didn't make her. People say, well done. Congratulations, girl. Amazing. You did it. You did it. And Kerry's like, no, I didn't. God knit her together in my womb. I just sat here and ate popcorn. Labour is not just sitting there and eating popcorn. But God made her, and that's what God says here. He said, I made you. I made you. It's an amazing warmth that God shows here in this passage. Listen to me, he says, you whom I have upheld since your birth, carried since you were born. It's so fatherly, isn't it? It's so, I made you, I love you, I formed you, I'm the one who carries you. I've carried you. And it's also to the day you die. It says, even to your old age and grey hairs. And the implication there is not just to old age and grey hairs and then God drops you, but even through and into death. God will carry you through death. You know, we change through life. We're born, we grow older, we die. God doesn't change. He carries us from the moment we're in the womb all the way to our death. So when we look back, we will see one pair of footprints, the Lord's, as he's carried us. I am he who sustains you. I think sometimes we think of God as being up there, and we're walking along, and something bad happens, so we say, Lord, come and help. But actually, he's the one who sustains us. He's the one who has given us the breath in our lungs at this very moment. That is not just something that God has put into motion and lets you get on with. But he has given you that breath in your lungs, that beating of your heart, the food in your bellies, everything, the clothes on your back, everything is given to us by God. He has sustained us. We're like Frodo. I was imagining this. We're like Frodo. If you know the scene, we're being carried up the mountain by Samwise Gamgee. We're weak. We can't do it on our own. But Sam, who loves Frodo, picks him up and carries him. That's what the Lord does for us. Even our salvation is achieved through God carrying our sins on himself. He says at the end there, I will sustain you and I will rescue you. I have made you, I will carry you, I will sustain you, I will rescue you. Turn a few pages with me to Isaiah 53. Just flick a few pages on to page 741 in the Church Bible. Isaiah 53. And then look from verse 4. Surely he took our pain and bore our suffering. Yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. We are all, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. And then look at verse 12. Do I mean verse 12? I don't mean verse 12. Yeah, I do, right at the end. Right at the end of verse 12. For he bore the sin of many and made intercession for transgressors. We sing a song here. We sing, all our sickness, all our sorrows, Jesus carried up the hill. It's a song that we sing. And he didn't look at us and say, I'll carry you, but I won't carry that. I'll carry you, but I won't carry your sufferings. I'll carry you, but I won't carry your rebellion and your idolatry. The weight of Jesus picking us up and carrying us was the weight of the cross on the back of Jesus. The ESV says, I have made, and I will bear, I will carry, and I will save. And what an amazing picture that is of God carrying our sins on his back. There's much more to this than just I'm going to carry you through life. It's I will bear your sins myself. I will pay for that sin. I will carry it. I will save. And so listen, God says. Where does satisfaction come from, Ben? Where does happiness come from? Where does salvation come from? Not from idols that are just going to crush you and make you weary, but from God who made you, who's a father who loves you, who is carrying you, who has carried you, by the way, whether you knew it or not, all the way to today, and is going to carry on carrying you through life, even to death. And so the question is, what idol is crushing you at the moment? What idol is a burden on you? What are you carrying every day that's heavy? What burden do you have in your life? Well, come back to Jesus, who was crushed for our iniquity, who bore your sin. It's amazing. Jesus says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. So listen. God carries you. That's the first point. The second point. Remember, God has a plan. You can just click the slide on, Dan. God has a plan. Look at so if you go back to Isaiah 46, and look at verse 8. Remember this. Keep it in mind. Take it to heart, you rebels. Remember the former things, those of long ago. I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me. I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please. From the east I summon a bird of prey, from a far-off land a man to fulfill my purpose. What I have said, that I will bring about. What I have planned, that I will do. And here again, God is contrasting himself with the idols of Babylon, because remember, Bel and Nebu together were the gods of destiny and order. And so you would pray to them if you wanted your crops to grow or your children to be well and healthy. If you wanted to change the course of your life and alter the future, you prayed to them. Your plans were in their hands. They were idols of control. And nowadays it might be, I want a nice house, I want, kids, I want good health, I want a stable income and job, I want friends that don't move away. And to our desire for control, God says, remember the former things. I am God, and there is no other. He says, I am El, and there is no other. You shall have no other gods before me. That's what we think of. You shall have no other gods before me. Remember what God has given his people, the commandments. You shall have no other gods before me. There is no other. Stop looking for idols. Stop thinking Bel will make your crops grow. He won't. There is no other God beside me. And then he says it again. It's interesting. God is punctuating this. But the second time, he doesn't say, I am El. He says, I am Elohim, which is the plural for El. And it's actually the word used in Genesis 1. So we're thinking back to Genesis, the maker of heaven and earth. In the beginning, God, Elohim, created. So, remember who you're dealing with, in other words, is what God is saying. Remember who I am. The God, the only God, the plural unity, the maker of heaven and earth. Your future is not in your hands. Your future is not in the hands of an idol. It's in the hands of the one who made you and who loves you and who made all things. Look at verse 10. I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times what is still to come. Now, how is it that God can make known the end from the beginning? Is it just because he can see the end? So God is outside of time. He sees every moment as a present moment. Is it just that God sees the end and says, I'm going to make that end known? Or is it more than that? Is it because he's shaping the future? Do you see how confident God is with the future? Look at the second half of verse 10. He says, I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please. God has a purpose. He has a plan. And he does that which pleases him. Verse 11b, look at the second half of verse 11. What I have said, that I will bring about.